Matt Stevens, it's a pleasure to speak with you again.
Hello, sir. Really nice to be here again. Awesome.
Now, you've been pretty busy since your last solo album, which was called Ghost. What have you been doing between that album and this new one that you've just released, which is called Relic?
Just done did the Face in the Dead record, which was me and some of the lads I used to basically I've known for years and years, and we've been trying to sort of toying with this sort of band project, trying to get this going, and we put that out. And they did all right. We're quite surprised. It's one of these records that we put it out and people seem to like it, and it sort of did well online and that. So I've done that. We're just about to start doing some gigs with them, and I've done a load of sort of solo type gigs. Played all over the UK again, and sort of done various festivals and supported quite a few sort of proggy type bands, and done all that sort of thing. So it's been really good. And I just had the new album, which is called Relic, just come out, and it seems to be doing okay as well. I mean, I've been really lucky that I've had a really supportive audience that have really sort of looked after me. So I can't complain really. I'm very, very lucky. But it's just you can't predict how these things are going to be. But yeah, it seems to be going okay so far.
So, how did you feel about having to share creative control with the other band members?
It was really nice. It took all the pressure off because normally it's like, when I'm doing the stuff on my own, my friend produces a lot of the stuff. So we'll sit there and we'll work out parts together. But at the end of the day, it's my name on it and I have to sort of take, it's my thing. So if people don't like it or it doesn't work, and not everyone's going to like what you do, that's fine. But you have to be. It's your name on the tin, as it were. But with the Fierce Today, it's very much a collaboration. So it was really nice to get some other people's ideas in there, especially after doing solo stuff for sort of 5 years or whatever. It's just so nice to have other people involved in the decision making process and getting some fresh input. And I think working and collaborating with anybody is a really good opportunity to sort of learn new things and learn how to get sort of new approaches to music. So yeah, it was great.
So, how was playing live as part of a band different to your solo work? Apart from having actually other people on the stage with you.
It's you're not in control anymore. So with the solo stuff, when things go horribly wrong, which they sometimes do, because you're improvising some of the parts and it's going to go wrong, it's kind of your fault. But if you take risks on stage when playing with other people and it goes horribly wrong, you kind of let them down. So there's a collective responsibility for the music you're making. So you have to sort of think and be considerate towards their doing, because you're playing together. So everything has to be shared and done as a collective. So yeah, no, it's a very, very different thing. And also it's just really nice to not be up there on your own, doing it on your own for a change. So I think one project feeds into the other. So what you learn from playing on your own as playing with other people, you learn how to you learn different skills, but they're both really useful and interesting experiences. So both really useful for learning stuff, really.
What was the reaction of the solo Matt Stevens fans to the very different sounds of the Fierce and the Dead?
Some of them didn't like it. No, well, so most people I seem to get away with it. Some people just like, because some of it's there's tracks on there that are raging hardcore punk stuff, and it's if you've only heard the first album, when it's really acoustic and quite sort of polite sort of stuff relative to the Fierce and the Dead, when raging American hardcore type song comes on, people are like, what the you doing here, but most people seem to accept it, and I was very, very lucky that it wasn't the reaction to it was largely positive. Everybody seemed to be into what I was doing and sort of give it a chance. I mean, some people it is very different and they're not going to be into it, which is fine. You're very lucky if anyone likes what you do anyway. So really it's it went pretty well. There was the odd person who just went, I don't get this at all, but largely it went fine.
Do you personally have any favourite tracks or moments from the Fierce and the Dead's album, which got a pretty bit of a tongue twister of a title, isn't it?
If it carries on like this, we're moving to Morecambe. Yeah, it was deliberate. I mean, because some of those sort of post-rocky sort of albums as well, they get a bit sort of po-faced and a bit serious. And although we're really serious about the music, we're not serious about ourselves. So we want to, sort of do something that was quite sort of quirky, but we're really, really passionately serious about the music. But we're not we don't want to sort of present ourselves like that. And yeah, I mean, there's a few songs on there I'm really proud of. I like Andy Fox, which is the last song. It's got he's sort of got a massive sax part on it, but it's really sort of very sort of. I'm really into 70s King Crimson, and that's kind of comes through on that, I think, you know. And there's a song called HR, which is quite influenced by like Crimson again. I mean, really, a lot of the influences on the record, it's Mahavishnu Orchestra, King Crimson, that sort of 70s jazz rock sort of thing, and sort of, you know, American punk stuff as well. So there's all sorts of different influences on there, but I mean, I think, you know, certainly for me, one of the big things in there was that sort of 72, 74 era King Crimson stuff, which I love so much.
So do you guys plan to write any more material together?
Yeah, man, yeah, totally, yeah. We're writing at the moment, so we're going to hopefully get another EP out after Christmas, and then do another album, and then probably do another album after that. But I mean, it's not like we're going to be doing this forever. This is something we're going to do and see how it goes for a couple of albums, and then probably move on to something else. And I think you need to do that. You need to sort of keep changing and trying different things, and then perhaps we'll come back to doing Fierce and Dead stuff later on. But it's a case of getting out there and creating interesting stuff. We've just got another guitarist in the Fierce and Dead as well. He's helping out live as well. He's going to be playing on the next record. A guy called Steve Clayton. He's a fantastic guitar player. And it's just really nice not to be the only guitarist in the band as well now, which is really, really useful to me. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to writing stuff with him and trying some of those sort of crazy two guitar things that we haven't been able to do with Face of the Dead. So there's loads of things I'm really excited about and really want to try. So yeah, I just want to get out there and do some more stuff with that, really.
Now, on to the new album, which is called Relic. How long has this one been in the making?
11 months. We started in September last year, started to put bits together for it. I mean, a lot of it was written when I was stuck on the floor when my back went. It was between sort of Ghost came out when my back was quite bad. But a lot of it was kind of was written during that, and it was written over the course of the last year as well. So it started September, and we got it out in it was about 11 months in the making, and then got it out in September of the following year. So yes, it's took a while. This one's been because we got the guys who played drums and bass in the Fierce of Dead playing on some of the tracks on this one. Got my friend Chrissy playing violin on it, and she's amazing. She plays in a really fantastic band called Cat Scans, who are just brilliant. And it's a bit different to the other ones, really. I mean, it's been something I've been working on for a long time. I really wanted to do, you know, take what we've done with the previous one and do more with it, and do it, you know, with more parts, and really sort of expand on those ideas, which was something I really, really wanted to do. But so 11 months, yeah.
Are there any particular themes, being an instrumental album, any themes behind it that we need to look out for?
A lot of it's there's some melodic things that go through the whole record that reoccur. The whole thing's about a lot of it's similar to sort of Ghost was, really. It's a lot of it's about where I used to come from and Northamptonshire and that, and it's supposed to, without being a cliche, the imaginary soundtrack or any of that nonsense, but it's supposed to be things that would evoke images when you listen to them, and there's supposed to be some sort of link to there. So, a lot of it's sort of growing up in Northamptonshire and moving to the country, and like I said, doing me back in, and there's all various sort of themes running through it. And there's a lot of references to old 80s computer games as well, which you can't go wrong with.
I was going to say I heard the sounds of my Commodore 64 in there. I definitely heard that.
It reminds you of being a kid, you know. It's so evocative. It's like, you know, like people who grew up in the 60s and 70s, the sound of the vinyl going on. I mean, to me, when I was a kid, it was the Amstrad and the Commodore 64 for the loading sounds. You know, that's all in there. You know.
Now, you touched on it a little bit a minute ago, but the album it's a lot more bombastic and eclectic than your first couple of albums. Can you expand on why you wanted to change and head in that direction?
I just want to be progressive. I want to try new things. I don't want to bore the audience or bore myself. So I think the key is to keep trying to do new things all the time. There's, you know, stuff on Relic that sort of goes from folky ballad stuff to rage and death metal, and it's all sort of things in between, really. And I still think there's that. It's, you know, people have called this one. I've had it called folk, prog, post rock, instrumental rock, indie rock. So I've no idea where any of it comes from, to be honest. But a lot of the people are into prog stuff, which is great. I mean, that's a big influence on me. There's all sorts of stuff that I love, and I think it all just goes in there. Really, I don't really know what it is, but when it comes out the other end, it's the record, isn't it? So I don't really know, to be honest.
I'll throw in another term there. It's a lot more experimental than your previous albums. All I can say is wow. The standout tracks for me are Sand Part 2, I really like that one, but Frost. Now, um, anyone who knows me would know why I like Frost so much. Those two tracks, they'd have to be your biggest nods to King Crimson to date, I think. There's weird frippatronics throughout both of them. But Frost in particular fascinates me because it combines that King Crimson style with metal, and there's even a full-on metal solo at the end. What's the inspiration in placing that particular track on an acoustic-based album?
Because I love Sepultura and King Crimson, so I love really heavy stuff, and I love 72, 74 Air Crimson's just a massive thing for me. The improvisation. It's really great that you sort of saying that, because there's the guitar tone on Frost is the melody part is a reference to Fripp's fuzz tone sound that he used on that stuff. So that's pretty cool. But I just want to keep trying new things, really, and it's because I don't really want to do 72, 74 King Crimson's a wonderful thing, but I neither can nor would want to recreate that sound because it's been done. So what would the point of that be? But Frippy and that weren't listening to late 70s, late 80s thrash metal like I was, or so you can try and take those things because you're never going to be as good as King Crimson. So what's the point of ever trying to do that? So you can take the influence of it and try and do something else with it, and try and do something that is sort of personal to you. So it's just loving all that sort of music, really. And it wasn't like a conscious thing of going, oh, this must sound like. I mean, obviously, when you do those sort of guitar sounds, you think, oh yeah, there's a bit of, what I mean? I can see there's definitely a Fripp influence in there, but you're not suddenly thinking, right, I will take this and add this, and we will come up with this. It's just a question of, all those influences are in there because I love that music, and it coming out that way. So it's not really a conscious thing. But when you listen back, you think, oh right, yeah, I can hear there's Fripp, and I think with the guitar sound it was conscious, but you can hear there's Fripp and Sepultura and Voivod and all that sort of stuff in there. But it just sort of comes out the way it does, really.
Now let's talk about your views on downloading, both nice downloading and naughty downloading. What's your view?
Well, most musicians want their music to be heard, and it's better. I'd rather somebody heard it than didn't hear it. One of the problems at the moment is that there's people who are never ever going to buy your music because they are downloading people. That's what they do. They download, and there's another people who are record shop people, and there's other people who are Spotify people, and there's other people who use other services, and that's just the way they get their music. And I think you need to be in all the places so that people get get to hear what you're doing. Now, I'd like to be paid for the music that we create because it costs money to make, and we really we don't make records on laptops. We make them. Me and Kevin produced the record. We made it in the same studio that Porcupine Tree used. I mean, it's not done. We do it because we want to make great records that we're really proud of, and we sort of do things, want to do things and use the services of a really good engineer or get a really good drummer in. We want to get good people on it. So there needs to be some way of making revenue from it. And I think what it's got to come down to is the audience have to choose to pay for the music. And if they don't choose to pay for it, we won't be able to afford to make it. And, that's the bottom line. We live in a time where music is available to download free on the internet, and you can try and fight it. You can try and sue the fans. I just don't think it gets you anywhere. Or being bitter towards the audience, it just doesn't get you. And I think you need to accept that, that exists. That's the reality of it. That when I was a kid, I used to tape things, and I used to swap tapes with people and share music and get really excited about music. But eventually I'd end up buying something or going and seeing the bands live and making some money from that. So which is great, but we live in a time where you can get music for free, and we need to make it so that the audience realizes that if they don't pay for music, there won't be any music available because we can't afford to make it anymore. We can, you can make low quality, you can make stuff on a laptop, which is, that's okay, but it won't be the same as, you're never going to get the last Stephen Wilson album produced on a laptop. It's not going to happen. You can hear that album was, the way it's recorded, it's a beautifully recorded record, and that's never going to happen through, free software on a laptop. You can get close if you have the expertise, but if you want to hear great records, there's going to be something's got to finance them. So I think we need to, as an audience, and I'm part of that audience for other artists, we need to choose to say, well, I love this, I want to pay for it because I want to hear more of it. I think that's the only way, because if we don't choose to do that, there won't be any more music to buy. It's just the reality of the situation.
When you say choose to pay for it, how have you got your music set up?
I'd rather someone came to it from me than paid for it. And I've got the person's email address, and I entered the dialogue with them, and I built a relationship with them, than torrented it off a dodgy porn site. I think that's a more adult way of dealing with it. I mean, probably for the next record, I probably won't offer a pay what you want option. I mean, that's something I've done up to now, but probably for the next one I won't. And I'll offer something else for free for people. So there will always be some sort of free offer on my site, so that people discovering the music, you can let them in rather than, like I say, forcing them into torrenting, because they are people who won't pay for stuff. So you need to build a relationship. But I think the fundamental point is getting people to think, one of the worst things the music industry ever did was convince people that people in rock were well off. Whereas most people I know in bands are really struggling, even people in, really well-known bands are really struggling. So, the audience can either decide to, not to pay for things or not pay for things, but if it has to be the audience's decision. Or what will end up is a culture of where people get to make records, but they'll have a very small audience, and you won't be able to afford to pay to to do the elaborate recordings. And that might be the way the world's going. That might be just what's going to happen. Which is the evolution of the artist-musician relationship. But we'll just have to see. We don't know. But I'd like to be able to hear records that are really well recorded. I'd still like to be able to hear records like Stephen Wilson's last one, because it sounds they're interesting records, and I want those records to come out. And if we don't choose to pay for them, they won't be there anymore.
So has the name your price option worked for you thus far, and would you recommend others to do the same?
Definitely, in terms of growing the audience, yeah, it definitely works. Yeah, I mean, I say it's been something that's been. If it hadn't been for that, I think a lot of the time in the early days, it was very hard to get people interested. To be honest, it's not as bad now, because you sort of got a bit of a following for the music and picked up a lot of press and talking to people like yourself. It's gradually the word gets out about the music. And a lot of people very kindly tell their friends as well, which is hugely appreciated. I mean, that makes such a difference if people like your music and they tell people, which really makes a difference. So it's got better. But yeah, in the early days, it was vital, because you had to get people to hear it. It was hard. So if you were putting a paywall up in front of them hearing it, well, that was kind of made it even more difficult. It was, you just wanted to hear it. And then but what happened was eventually it grew. And I built this sort of email list of a few thousand people. So each new release going out went to this email list, because every time somebody downloaded something from my site for free, I got their email address. And so that really gave us the chance to grow that audience one person at a time. But yeah, it's not easy, but it certainly helped. And I certainly will always offer an option, some sort of free option on my website. Whether it's done pay what you want, whether it's done another method, I don't really know, because it's ever evolving. But at the moment, yeah, pay what you want to work really. And certainly in terms, often people choose to be more generous than you'd ever imagine as well. People will pay a considerable amount for an album because they want to support you, which is amazing, hugely appreciated. And I think there's something as well that a lot of people don't necessarily realise, that a lot of the audience, they want to help. They want to pay for music. They want to help. So, there's that as well.
Now, 2011 seems to be a massive year for prog releases from major prog artists like Van de Graaff, Generator, Blackfield, Pendragon, Stephen Wilson, Dream Theater, yes, Steve Hackett. They've all released new albums this year. Do you think these major acts will draw attention away from the smaller players like yourself and will affect you?
Well, I mean, this year has been, for me, it's felt like there's been a bit of a revival of the prog type thing. So I don't know whether anyone else feels that, but I mean, I think certainly for the first time, it used to be when I was years ago, because I was always into King Crimson, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and that sort of thing. People are, oh, you and your prog. And it was always like not cool to be into that sort of thing. But that's what I liked. I mean, I love King Crimson. But now I don't think it's seen as something that's has got the negative connotations to it, and I don't think anybody getting into any kind of music and is good, and whether it will leave room for people like me, it seems to be. I think people perhaps discover Stephen Wilson, Steve Hackett, perhaps a few rungs down the ladder, they might eventually get to me, which is great. I'd rather people were excited about music than not, so I'm not really worried, to be honest. I mean, it was a bit weird putting out Relic the week it came out, because that week I think Stephen Wilson's album came out. I think Steve Hackett's album came out that week as well. It was just like, oh my God. I think Opeth was out the week before. It was just everything seemed to come out in end of September, October time. So it was a bit, this is crazy. But luckily, I mean, it seems to be going okay. I mean, Classic Rock presents Prog Magazine seem quite keen. So we'll see, really. You never know. But I think anything that gets people excited about interest in music's got to be a good thing. And whether it's, obviously I haven't got the marketing budget of those sort of guys. I haven't got that sort of thing. But I'm getting the music's out there and people are listening to it. So I just think I'm really lucky anyway, really, to be honest.
I guess if someone picks up Prog Magazine because they've got an interest in Stephen Wilson, they're gonna see a review for your album in the same magazine, aren't they? And hopefully pick you up that way.
It's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? You know what I mean? Whether it will continue into next year, that's the question. Because this year things have been really, really good. Whether that will continue into next year, I really don't know, and nobody knows that. No one expected the prog thing to come back like it has. So whether it'll come, whether it'll be big next year, I really don't know. But all we can say is these are good times, and let's just roll with where we're at, really.
Yeah, it's really, really good times in terms of prog, I agree. Well, all the best for the new album. Matt Stevens, thanks again for having a chat.
Oh, thanks loads. Always good to talk to you.